Hey there guys, Slyfox Kynyo here with the top 5 games of 2017. It was a hard year to decide what games should go into the top 5 and what games should go into the bottom 5. Well, I say that. There was one notable exception, but if you've watched the bottom 5 video, you already know what that is. This year, there were 10 distinct games that I felt should certainly make it into the top 5. Unfortunately, math does not work that way. So here I go with what I consider to be the top 5 games of 2017. Please keep in mind this list is limited only to the games I played on the channel and is based upon my preference of the games. There are some truly marvelous games that did not make this list, just there are truly shit ones that did not make the bottom 5. Enjoy. Oh, and one other thing. Before I get into the top 5, I want to make note of 2 honorable mentions that truly deserve to be in the top 5, but just ever so slightly did not make the cut. Our second honorable mention, Ruby Grim Eclipse. Now, I adore a good hack and slash game, and that's exactly what Ruby Grim Eclipse brings to the table. Even better, you get to play as your favorite characters from Rooster Teeth's Ruby, and if that isn't badass, I don't know what is. Because that show's amazing, these characters are amazing, and the game is amazing. Unfortunately, the game ended up simply being fun, yeah? I have not finished it on the channel yet, and I actually might end up finishing it for the channel, but the game is still just fun. It's not an outstanding hack or slash. It didn't, reach what I consider to be, Devil May Cry. That's kind of my gold standard personally for a hack and slash game, and while it's super fun, it didn't reach the Devil May Cry level of fun. So it wasn't earth-shatteringly good, but I still play it in my free time, and so although I couldn't find a spot for it in the top 5 this year, I absolutely recommend you check this game out. Yeah? Honorable mention 1. The Killing Floor 2. Now when it comes to zombie games, the Killing Floor knows exactly what it's doing and exactly where it's going. The rounds are just the right length, the bosses are just the right amount of difficult, and the aspect of collecting every collectible on the map adds a nice little twist to an old first-person shooter zombie mechanic. But when it comes time to put this game in the top 5, I couldn't honestly say I enjoyed it any more than any other FPS zombie game that I have played, like Black Ops Zombies or some of the old Call of Duty zombies. It was a fun game for sure, but simply forgettable in this mass of repetitive zombie games we have. However, I absolutely recommend you go and play it. Alright, now let's get on to the ones that you actually are here for. Number 5, Dark Souls 3. It isn't surprising that Dark Souls found its way into my top 5 games of the year, as it is notably one of my favorite series of all time. Dark Souls 3 in particular, however, did an amazing job of creating an atmospheric story that nicely filled in the gaps in the story that we had left from Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2. And some try to argue Bloodborne, but they're really different universes, so completely different thing. And while the combat can feel as teeth-gnashingly, gut-wrenchingly, fist-to-your-TV, throwing your controller difficult as it was in the previous games, I found that it was much more equitable between all possible builds, especially when you started talking about PvP. And overall, it is more Dark Souls, but that's a good thing, because I like Dark Souls. Number 4, Rime. Now, I'm sure this game is making the top, pick your range, top 10, top 25, whatever, lists all over, but it really does deserve to. With smooth gameplay and an honestly touching story, it is hands down one of my favorite games this year. I honestly thought it was going to be Game of the Year, but then some other things ended up beating it out. The only reason this game didn't end up as Game of the Year for me is that I cannot find another reason to go back and play more. The experience was beyond incredible, but now that I know the story and the game is over, I can't find a reason to go back. And for me, a large part of gameplay is the I want more factor. And while I certainly want more of Rime, I want more in the game now, not necessarily a sequel. However, you absolutely need to check out this game if you have not done so already. Number 3, Overwatch. Now this was to be expected, right? I probably play more Overwatch than is healthy. The only surprising thing about this may be that this game did not win Game of the Year for me. Now, I love Overwatch as much as some, and probably more than most. I cannot in good gamer conscience say this is the best game this year. The replay value is obviously through the roof, and with new characters coming out and gameplay rebalancing occurring nearly as fast as I can make this video, the game is always fresh and always fun. However, that is part of the problem. Sometimes I want a game, especially in some of the more competitive MOBAs, that is more or less quote-unquote static, at least for seasons. I understand that new characters and modes can keep the game fun, keep drawing people in, keep people coming and buying, but at the same time, if you make an amazing product, with which the original Overwatch was, you run the risk of spoiling it with every change that you make. Thus far, they have not done so yet, and thus they earn the bronze medal for the 2017 year. But if they aren't careful, that top 3 rank could very quickly slip away. Right now, though, I have to highly recommend this game. Number 2, Thumper. I agonized for a good hour over if this deserved Game of the Year or what ended up actually being the Game of the Year winner. Eventually, what made my decision was this question. If I was going to go play one of these 2 games right now again, all the way through, which would it be? And the answer was not Thumper. Now, that's not to say this game is not astoundingly good. It has some of the best rhythm-based gameplay I have ever seen in a game ever. The music is catchy enough that the soundtrack alone is worth listening to, and with the slight techno horror in the boss fights, the game is just that much more appealing. There really isn't anything I can say that is wrong with this game. It punishes you fairly when you make a mistake, and it can be keyboard snappingly hard at times. I'm looking at you, level 9-infinity. But other than that, this game is pretty much the best game you can ask for if you like rhythm games, and hey, it comes in VR too. But as far as what the best game this year was, it was the game that I personally want to sit down and play again, and again, and again. And that just was not Thumper. I want to play Thumper again, but I don't want to play Thumper again every day for the rest of my life. Which makes our number 1 winner pretty obvious if you guys have been listening to this channel for a while. Number 1, Final Fantasy IX. I know, the bias is super strong with this one, but people are biased and it's my channel. Now, this game did not come out in 2017, but as I said, this is about games I played this year, and I finished this playthrough this year. It is one of my favorite games of all time, and I could not in good faith make a top 5 list and not put Final Fantasy IX on it at some point. Remember, my favorite game of all time is obviously going to take a number 1 spot, but before you take to your keyboards and start writing up a complaint, let me actually defend this for a second, because yes, Final Fantasy is an old game from the PS1 era of gaming, and as such cannot be expected to keep up with the modern day's fast-paced RPGs that are currently being released. But compare it to some of its more modern brethren like Final Fantasy 15. I would say that 9 easily comes out on top. Yes, the battle system in Final Fantasy 15 is second to none in a Final Fantasy game. I'm not going to take that away. But the story is strongly lacking, and there isn't much to say about the open world other than, okay, and there is an open world. Because at some point or another, in virtually every Final Fantasy game, you get to experience the open world. And in my opinion, it's much more fun when you're in the upper echelons of levels and are one-shotting everything that comes your way. Because that's part of the Final Fantasy thing, right, is you get to become super powerful by the end of this game. So what makes Final Fantasy IX the game of the year when compared to all of these other magnificent games that I've listed, and even some of the ones that I haven't? And for me, the answer is simple. It's the story. Like a good book, there are stories that just grab you and you cannot put them down. You can read or play them over and over and over and over and over, and they still fill you with that same thrill, excitement, love, horror, trepidation, whatever that emotion is that grabs you, and they provide that to you constantly. And that's what Final Fantasy IX is for me. It's a story that is timeless and beautiful and touching, and so far, I just can't see a story beating it. Thus, for me, the replay value is infinite. As we discussed with the Thumper review, which game would I rather play forever, Thumper or Final Fantasy IX? And I'd rather play Final Fantasy IX forever. That's not to say that Thumper isn't an amazing game. I just rather would play Final Fantasy IX, and this is a biased review. I mean, all reviews are biased, so unfortunately, or fortunately in my opinion, Final Fantasy IX wins Game of the Year. And this game is long, and the world is large, and you can play for hundreds, literally hundreds of hours, and you'll still miss a couple secrets. So while I know this is going to ruffle some feathers from people, but it is my game of the year, But my advice is this: if you haven't played Final Fantasy IX, go in with an open mind and actually play the whole game. Don't knock it till you've tried it. Yeah? The game is worth playing, the story is worth listening to, and it's a fun way to kill, if you really want to get into it, hundreds of hours. So, thank you guys very much for watching. These have been my top 5 games of 2017. If you have not watched the bottom 5 games of 2017 video, please check it out. There'll be a link there in the comments below, and there will also be an annotation right here on the screen. Thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you guys in the next video. And remember, through gaming, we can change the world. Slyfox out.